The bank manager's words hit me like a physical blow. "I'm sorry, Mr. Cole, but Miss Richards accessed the safe deposit box yesterday morning. She had proper authorization as co-signer and removed all contents. My stepsister Karen had beaten me to Dad's box by 12 hours and taken everything inside. My name is Benjamin Cole, 37 years old, and I work as a real estate development specialist in Phoenix. My father, William Cole, passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack at age 68, leaving behind what I knew was a substantial estate built over 40 years in commercial real estate. Karen Richards, his stepdaughter from his second marriage, had somehow gained access to his safe deposit box before I even knew it existed. I stood in the marble-floored lobby of First National Bank, holding the key Dad had given me 6 months earlier, with instructions to check the box if anything happens to me. The key was useless now. Karen had emptied everything. What exactly did she remove? I asked the bank manager. I can't provide specific details, but I can confirm that Ms. Richards presented proper documentation showing her as an authorized co-signer and removed all box contents yesterday at 10:30. Karen had moved with remarkable speed, almost as if she'd been prepared for his death. When was she added as a co-signer? According to our records, approximately 8 months ago. 8 months ago, Dad had been diagnosed with early-stage heart disease. The timing wasn't coincidental. Karen had positioned herself for this exact scenario while Dad was dealing with his health scare. What Karen didn't know was that Dad had mentioned multiple contingencies in our last conversation, and he'd always been the kind of man who planned for every possibility. I drove home thinking about my relationship with Karen and her mother, Patricia. Dad had married Patricia when I was 22. And Karen was 25. Patricia was a widow with substantial debt from her first husband's medical bills, while Dad was a successful commercial real estate developer with a portfolio worth several $1,000,000. From the beginning, Karen had shown unusual interest in Dad's business affairs. She'd ask detailed questions about his properties, his investment strategies, his estate planning. I'd assumed she was just trying to bond with her new stepfather, but now I wondered if she'd been gathering intelligence. Karen worked as a paralegal at a law firm that specialized in estate planning. Her professional knowledge of wills, trusts, and probate procedures had probably helped her understand exactly how to position herself for maximum inheritance benefit. 3 years into the marriage, Patricia had been diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's. Dad had cared for her with remarkable devotion until her death 2 years ago, spending over $200,000 on specialized care. Karen had been supportive during her mother's illness, which had earned Dad's gratitude and trust. But I'd noticed changes in Dad's behavior over the past year. He'd become more secretive about his business affairs, more careful about discussing financial matters in front of Karen. When I'd asked him about it, he'd said he was taking precautions but hadn't elaborated. Now I understood what kind of precautions he'd been taking. That evening, I called Dad's attorney, Margaret Patterson, who had handled his legal affairs for 20 years. "Benjamin, I'm so sorry for your loss. Your father was a remarkable man." "Thank you, Margaret. I need to understand something about Dad's estate." Karen accessed his safe deposit box yesterday and removed everything. "I'm trying to figure out what that means for the estate distribution." There was a pause. "Benjamin, what safe deposit box are you referring to?" "The one at First National Bank. Box 24-7. "That's interesting. According to the estate documents your father filed with me, he closed that safe deposit box 6 months ago." My heart stopped. "He closed it?" "Yes. He said he was consolidating his document storage and no longer needed the box. But Karen just emptied it yesterday." "Then Karen accessed a box that your father had supposedly closed." "Benjamin, I think we need to meet in person to discuss this." The next morning, Margaret showed me documents that revealed the scope of Dad's planning and the trap he'd set for anyone trying to steal from his estate. "Your father came to see me in March," Margaret explained, as we sat in her office. "He was concerned about Karen's increasing interest in his financial affairs. He suspected she might be positioning herself to claim assets that weren't rightfully hers." "What did he do about it?" "Several things. First, he removed Karen as beneficiary from several accounts and insurance policies. Second, he moved all valuable documents and assets out of the safe deposit box she could access. Third, He created what he called bait, items in the box that would reveal if someone was trying to steal from his estate. Margaret handed me a sealed envelope, marked Benjamin Cole, open only after my death. Inside was a letter in Dad's handwriting. Ben, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone and you've discovered that Karen accessed the safe deposit box. By now you've probably learned that I closed the box months ago according to my attorney's records. Here's what actually happened. In March I became suspicious that Karen was planning to claim assets from my estate that weren't intended for her. Her questions about my business, her sudden interest in becoming a co-signer on financial accounts, her paralegal knowledge of estate law. It all pointed to someone preparing for inheritance theft. So I set a trap. I left specific items in the box that Karen could access, items that would prove she was stealing if she took them. The box contained 1. A fake will dated 6 months ago, leaving everything to Karen. 2. Copies of property deeds with forged transfer documents, stock certificates for companies that don't exist. 4. A letter supposedly from me, instructing Karen to claim all assets immediately. If Karen takes these items and tries to use them, she'll be committing multiple felonies, theft, fraud, and forgery. The fake will alone is enough to prove criminal intent. The real assets are stored elsewhere, in locations Karen doesn't know about. My actual will, filed with Margaret, leaves the estate distributed according to my true wishes. Then, I hope I'm wrong about Karen's intention. But if you're reading this letter, it means my suspicions were correct, and she's taken the bait. Your father, William Cole. I stared at the letter, processing the implications. Margaret, where are Dad's real assets? Safe deposit box at Arizona Community Bank. Property documents at his business office safe. Investment accounts with transfer on death designations directly to you. Karen has access to none of the actual estate, and the items she took from the First National box are all fraudulent documents that will incriminate her if she tries to use them. What happens now? We wait to see what Karen does with what she stole. The answer came faster than expected. 2 days later, Karen called me. Benjamin, I think we need to talk about Dad's estate. There are some documents you should see. What kind of documents? I found Dad's real will. He changed it before he died. And there are some surprises. She was already taking the bait. We met at a coffee shop near Karen's law firm. She arrived carrying a folder that undoubtedly contained the fake documents Dad had planted. Benjamin, I know this is going to be difficult, but Dad made some changes to his estate plan that you might not be aware of. What kind of changes? She opened the folder and showed me the fake will. He updated his will 6 months ago. I found it in his safe deposit box along with some other important documents. The fake will was professionally formatted and looked legitimate. It named Karen as the primary beneficiary of Dad's estate, with me receiving only a small inheritance of. Karen, this doesn't seem right. Dad never mentioned changing his will. Benjamin, I think Dad was concerned about your financial stability. You've had some ups and downs with your real estate projects. That was partially true. I'd had some challenging deals in recent years, but it wasn't grounds for disinheritance. I want to see the original will that Margaret Patterson has on file. Actually, there's something else you should know. Dad left instructions for me to handle the estate administration. She showed me the fake letter supposedly written by Dad. He wanted me to work with his attorney to expedite the probate process. Karen, I think we should both meet with Margaret together to review everything. That's not necessary. I've already consulted with attorneys at my firm. They can handle the estate administration more efficiently than Margaret. She was trying to circumvent Dad's real attorney and use her own firm to process the fraudulent documents. I'd still like Margaret involved. She's been Dad's attorney for 20 years. Karen's expression hardened slightly. Benjamin, I understand this is emotional for you, but we need to be practical. Dad left clear instructions about how he wanted his estate handled. That evening, I called Margaret. She took the bait completely. Karen showed me the fake will and is trying to use her law firm to process fraudulent estate documents. That's criminal fraud, Benjamin. She's not just stealing. She's using her professional position to commit crimes. What's our next step? We contact the district attorney's office. What Karen is doing constitutes multiple felonies: theft, fraud, forgery, and abuse of fiduciary position. Do we have enough evidence? Your father was very thorough. He documented everything, including video recordings of himself creating the fake documents, and explaining why he was setting the trap. 2 weeks later, Karen called me again.
Benjamin, I've filed the initial probate documents. Dad's estate should be settled within 60 days. What documents did you file? The will I showed you, along with property transfer documents I found in the safe deposit box. Everything should transfer smoothly. She was doubling down on the fraud, using forged property deeds to try to claim Dad's real estate portfolio. Karen, I'm going to contest the will. On what grounds? I think there are questions about its authenticity. Benjamin, you're being emotional. The will is properly witnessed and notarized. My firm has verified its validity. Then you won't mind if I bring in a handwriting expert. That's unnecessary and expensive. We should work together to honor Dad's wishes instead of fighting over money. The next day, Margaret and I met with Assistant District Attorney Patricia Santos. This is one of the most well-documented fraud cases I've seen, Santos said after reviewing Dad's evidence. Mr. Cole essentially created a complete sting operation against his stepdaughter. What charges are we looking at? Theft of estate assets, forgery of legal documents, fraud in probate proceedings, and professional misconduct. Given that Karen is using her position as a paralegal to commit these crimes, we're also looking at abuse of fiduciary duty. When will you arrest her? We want to let her proceed far enough that there's no question about criminal intent. Once she files the forged property deeds with the county recorder, we'll have her on multiple felonies. Karen filed the fraudulent property transfer documents on a Tuesday morning. She was arrested that afternoon at her law firm. The arrest was devastating for someone in her professional position. Karen was immediately suspended from her paralegal position, pending criminal proceedings. Her law firm faced regulatory investigation for employing someone who'd committed professional misconduct. Or you hook. But Dad's trap had revealed something even more disturbing than simple inheritance theft. During the investigation, prosecutors discovered that Karen had been systematically stealing from other clients at her law firm. She'd been using her access to estate planning documents to identify wealthy elderly clients, then positioning herself to inherit from people who had no family connections to her. Dad's case wasn't her first fraud. It was her most ambitious. Karen had convinced 3 other elderly clients to name her as beneficiary in their wills, using her professional knowledge to manipulate people who trusted their legal representation. The total amount of fraud across all cases exceeded Your father probably saved several other families from being defrauded, Detective Morrison told me. Karen's pattern shows she'd been perfecting these techniques for years. Karen's criminal trial began 8 months after her arrest. The evidence was overwhelming. Dad's video recordings, the fake documents she'd filed, the pattern of fraud with other clients. She pled guilty to multiple felonies in exchange for a reduced sentence of 4 years in state prison and full restitution to all victims. The estate distribution proceeded according to Dad's real will. I inherited his commercial real estate portfolio, his investment accounts, and his business assets. The total value was approximately $3.7 million, significantly more than Karen could have stolen even with her fraudulent scheme. Karen lost her career, her freedom, and any legitimate claim to Dad's estate. But more than that, she lost the respect and family relationship she could have maintained by acting honestly. Today, I manage Dad's real estate portfolio and have expanded it significantly. Part of the income goes to supporting legal aid organizations that help elderly people protect themselves from inheritance fraud. Dad's letter also contained instructions for using his story to help other families recognize the warning signs of inheritance theft. His video recordings have become training materials for estate planning attorneys. Sometimes I think about the safe deposit box that started everything. Karen thought she was pulling off a sophisticated heist, but she was actually walking into a trap that Dad had spent months planning. Her mistake wasn't just trying to steal from Dad's estate. Her mistake was underestimating the man who'd built a multi-million-dollar business through careful planning and attention to detail. Dad knew that someone planning to steal from his estate would move quickly after his death. He used that predictable behavior against Karen, turning her greed into evidence of her criminal intent. The second safe deposit box that Karen didn't know about contained not just Dad's real assets, but the complete documentation of her own criminal activities. Sometimes the best revenge against theft isn't preventing it. It's ensuring that the thief convicts themselves through their own actions. Karen thought she was inheriting millions. Instead, she inherited a prison sentence and the destruction of everything she'd worked to build in her professional life. Dad's final lesson was about the difference between taking what belongs to you and taking what belongs to someone else. Karen never learned that distinction, and it cost her everything she thought she was trying to gain.